i-feature natin itong balita international kasi nakarating na sa international scene yung Pilipinas. Yung Pilipinas na pinahiya ng Marcos administration na ibinenta ang sovereignty natin. Nakakahiya as if isa doon sa naging counter o rebuttal nung prosecution at nung sa victims. Sabi, ang pinagbabatayan nila ay yung decision ng Supreme Court doon with regard doon sa EJK na dineclare na EJK daw yung ginawa ni PRRD ng Supreme Court. Ngayon, kung yun pala ang isa sa mga batayan nila or grounds nila, bakit hindi sa Pilipinas kinasuhan itong si PRRD? Ang pinagbabatayan Supreme Court, ibig sabihin, we have functioning justice system. Kasi ang basehan nila, bukod doon sa mga pahayag ni PRRD, basehan nila Supreme Court. Kahapon lang yan sa sinasabi nila na ang kanilang isa sa mga evidence kuno doon sa rebuttal nila sa sinabi ni Attorney Kaufman ay Supreme Court. Doon ako natawa. Naniniwala pala sila sa Supreme Court. So bakit dinala sa ibang bansa? Nakakahiya. Anyway, international news media, panoorin natin. Nakakahiya talaga tayo. Nasa spotlight tayo. Sikat tayo, pero hindi sa kagandahan. Sino maniniwala sa atin? Business side, peace and order, wala maniniwala sa atin.
Political opponents of former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte attempted to bribe ICC officials to bring down the nation's ex-leader. That's the explosive claim his defense team have alleged during an ongoing international criminal court case focused on the Duterte administration's ruthless war on drug dealers. RT's Dwayne Dizon takes up the story.
Bago tayo mag-proceed, ito yung balita na hindi ibinalita ng mainstream media. Sakalang nagbalita ang mainstream media nung may rebuttal na or sagot yung mga naakusahan. Like Malacanang, Claire Castro. Ayan, nagpa-interview na yung mga congressman na involved. Kita nyo? Yun lang ang in-amplify nila or binalita nila. Pero nung nag-press con, yung 18 Marines, Attorney Baligod, wala ni isa sa mainstream media. Biruin ninyo, international media pa ang ganitong balita.
The Hague's International Criminal Court has always insisted its investigations are independent. But a bombshell expose here in Manila is threatening its foundation. RT attended the press event when lawyer Levy Baligot presented a sworn affidavit from 18 former security personnel. Baligot maintains he is not connected to the Duterte family and is only representing the group of ex-Marines who claim they acted as bagmen in a high-level scheme to compromise the ICC's probe into former President Rodrigo Duterte.
The foreigners traveled to various locations in Manila and Quezon City using the vehicles of Zaldico. Based on conversations we overheard, they were visiting places where the alleged extrajudicial killings, EJKs, connected to the war on drugs of former President Rodrigo Duterte reportedly occurred. We confirmed that the foreigners they were referring to were representatives of the International Criminal Court, ICC, after we saw Chantal in the news identified as a member of the ICC.
The testimony centers on the arrival of ICC investigators in late 2023 when, according to the whistleblowers, their employer Zaldico tasked them to prepare for foreign guests. Billionaire contractor Co is at the heart of a massive 2025 flood control corruption scandal and allegedly used his private security forces to manage the ICC's logistics. The whistleblowers claim they handled staggering amounts of cash, intended to ensure the investigators remain under the influence of the administration's allies.
We often personally witnessed the counting of the money before it was placed into various containers. Depending on the amount, the money was placed in A. Suitcases, large, 50-70 million Philippine pesos capacity, medium, 30-40 million Philippine pesos capacity, small, 15-25 million Philippine pesos capacity. B. Paper bags, 5-10 million Philippine pesos capacity. C. Expandable envelopes, 2 million Philippine pesos capacity.
The affidavit goes beyond local deliveries.
Parang barya lang ah.
It cites DHL receipts showing shipments sent directly to ICC representatives
Ayan no, may ebidensya. Ay anong tawag dyan? Embassy of, Ireland. The Hague, Netherlands.
in the US and the Netherlands. The bagmen alleged these funds were the engine behind the curated investigation into alleged
Hindi ganito ang balita ng mainstream media natin.
speaking only to witnesses who were pre-selected and screened by the Duterte family's most persistent political rival, former Senator Sodi Trillanes. Is one
Parang si Aisa Seguera to ah. O parang
of the most outspoken critics of the alleged extrajudicial killings during former President Duterte's time.
All of the vehicles that were used, hotel accommodations, were taken care of Zaldi Co. and Sonny Trelanes. You will also see in this affidavit the frequent deliveries of luggage and paper bags of money given to those who are taking care of the ICC investigators in the country. All their food, all the vehicles, hotels, condominium units were taken care of the group of Sonny Trelanes and Zaldi Co. This is the team leader of the ICC investigators, Chantal Daniels. This is the photo
Ayan na may ebidensya.
taken by one of their security detachment. Shown here are some of their colleagues.
Coffee shop.
The implications of this pay-to-play project are profound. The whistleblowers have implied that these bribes fast-track the ICC's case to directly implicate Rodrigo Duterte.
So ano yung binalita ng mainstream media natin? Summarily dismissed or discharged daw. Wala silang credibility. Yung iba dyan ay hindi daw Marines. Yun ang balita nila. Walang iya.
While Sonny Trillanes
Hindi daw napirmahan yung affidavit nila.
dismisses the claims
Pero magtaka ka, walang investigation, walang pagpapatawag sa Senado. Bakit?
as a blatant lie, the scandal has forced a rift in the current government. Senator Amy Marcos has now filed a resolution to investigate whether the ICC's evidence
Wala na. Wala ka ng power dyan, Amy Marcos. Ano yung Senado ngayon? Pinamumugaran ng bataan ng administrasyon.
was manufactured through this secret cooperation.
Kahit mag-file ka ng resolution for hearing, malabo.
True, it suggests the case against Duterte wasn't built on facts, but on suitcases full of cash provided by his fiercest enemies.
The ICC investigators themselves committed graft and corruption because why did they allow all the expenses, vehicles, food were taken care of by people who they know are the enemies of who they were investigating? Apparently, the mandate of the ICC is to protect the human rights of people, but why did not bestow to or respect the human rights of one person who they were investigating, and instead should have investigated other people who were not pre-selected by Sonny Trillanes?
Attorney Baligod has confirmed he is now handing this evidence over to the Office of the Ombudsman and in the future to the ICC's own internal
Paano, Ombudsman, si Rimulya, na isa sa napangalanan dyan.
oversight body. As the Senate prepares for a formal inquiry, the question for the Hague is no longer simply about the war on drugs, but encompasses its own investigators and whether they became pawns from multi-million-dollar political hit job.
Walang ganyan sa mainstream media. Imagine, nakarating na sa international scene ang pinaggagawa ng ating mga tarantadong mga politicians dahil sa kanilang interest. Ito pa, ito kasi RT, Russian Times ata to. So hindi, Russia yan eh. Tingnan natin. BBC. BBC, tingnan natin.
Recent weeks, Sara
Dito na tayo
Duterte
sa ano.
announcing that she's going to run for the top job in 2028. I guess it's not surprising, but isn't it quite early?
His father, Ferdinand Marcos, dominated the Philippines from the 90s. These are now two, perhaps, the most powerful political clans in the country, but they're a little different from the more traditional power brokers.
Yung kasi sa 18 Marines, ganito kasi nangyari dyan eh. Nung lumabas si Guteza, or unahin muna natin si Zaldico. Nung lumabas si Zaldico, unexpected nila yon. Kasi akala nila mananahimik siya. Siguro hindi natin alam kung bakit napuno yun or biglang nagsalita. Unexpected nila yon. Pero ang tanong natin ngayon, nasaan na si Zaldico? Bakit parang tumahimik? Yan ang bantayan natin. Bakit parang sabi niya marami pa siyang i-expose? Bakit biglang nawala? Unang tanong. Ngayon, lumabas si Guteza corroborating yung sinasabi ni Zaldico. Tapos, to cut it short, biglang nawala si Guteza. Hindi natin alam kasi saan siya, sabi nanganganib o hindi natin alam ba't nawala. Ngayon, akala nila na-silence na yung dalawa, si Zaldico sa si Guteza. Hindi nila alam na si Guteza isa lang sa mga bala. Hindi nila alam na meron pa palang mga kasamaan si Guteza. Kanila si Guteza lang na parang nag-iisa na parang baliw. Parang yung ginawa nila sa isang sundalo ba yun na nag-withdraw ng support? Kala nila isa lang, pero hindi nila alam, prepared. Meron pa palang 18 pa at may 12 pa at marami pa. So, hindi sila handa dito sa paglabas ng 18 Marines. Nakita nyo kung paano hindi binalita ng mainstream media. Doon natin halatado na, dyan palang totoo na yan eh. Kasi, bakit ganun ang kanilang reaction? Kaliwat kanan ang kanilang depensa gamit ang kanilang makinaryang mainstream media.
Because in the Philippines, usually big landed
So ngayon, paano nila pipigilan yan? Weaponize nila yung Senado. Weaponize nila yung House na hindi nila ipapaimbestigahan. Biro ninyo, mas ipapaimbestiga pa nila sana yung Dolomite Beach. Yun nga na walang kakwenta-kwenta, ipapaimbestiga. Pero eto, ilang araw na mula nung lumabas yung mga 18 Marines, ang kanilang balita ay wala daw kredibilidad yung mga yon. Instead na ipatawag sa Senado.
Families who dominated politics for decades. The Marcos family almost need no introduction. The current president's father, Ferdinand Marcos, dominated the Philippines from the mid-1960s on, took dictatorial powers. He suspended democracy, was accused of massive corruption and of extensive human rights abuses, but was also a towering personality. And of course, his wife, Imelda Marcos, was just as big a personality. But we thought their time was up in 1986 when we had this pivotal event in Philippines history, a people power uprising that throughout the Marcoses, they were helicoptered out to the island of
Tapos nakabalik
Hawaii and ushered back in a proper democratic rule and sort of accountability and democracy. But I think there was an understanding. The Dutertes had also become very powerful thanks to Roddy Duterte's presidency from 2016 on. They're extremely strong in the south of the country, in the city of Davao. And President Duterte finished his term in 2022. For all he was controversial and again, extensive human rights accusations against him, he was still a popular president. And his daughter, Sara, certainly was very popular then and remains popular. And I think both families understood that if they ran against each other, they'd be kind of cannibalizing what you might call the populist vote in the Philippines. That was the style of their campaign. So they formed this pragmatic alliance. They called it the Unity Team. It definitely helped. President Marcos, the current president, won by an outright majority. That's very rare in the Philippines.
So, strategically, Norte at South, yung populist vote nung dalawa, para kay Claire Castro na sabihin na, oh, oo nga, dapat nga, mas mabuti nga hindi talaga siya tumakbo na vice president, tumakbo na lang siyang mayor sa kanila. Sabi niya, alam mo kung hindi siya tumakbong vice president at si Marcos ang tumakbo at hindi mo alam kung sino yung kanyang running mate, alam mo, sino yung presidente ngayon? Wala ka sana dyan sa podium na yan dahil ang presidente sana ngayon, Leni Robredo. Pero dahil nagtandem yung dalawa, hinila ni VP, yung amo mo, mayaya ka sa pinagsasabi mo, kulang ka sa history.
Presidential election.
Jonathan, in terms of Rodrigo Duterte being held to face an ICC trial, what has he said about the accusations that he's facing?
Well, he says he doesn't
Ito, remember itong nagsasalita, most likely nasa nasa progressive or liberal. Pero tignan niyo ang kanyang sinasabi ngayon.
recognize the authority of the ICC. He's refused even to appear in court. So he's dismissed it completely. He's also talking about, with his age, his memory not being particularly good. I think his problem is that while he was president, he didn't try to distance himself at all from the drug wars. He owned up to them. He encouraged police to go really hard. He said that if they killed people, that they wouldn't face any consequences. So his defense is actually quite difficult, but as he doesn't even recognize the authority of the court, and he says it was completely improper that he was ever sent to face international justice rather than a Philippines court, in a sense, that's his main argument.
And Regine, when, Jonathan just talked about when the relationship between the president and the vice president started to sour, did it come as a surprise or was it kind of almost inevitable given the two very strong families?
Sagutin ko yan, surprise. It came as a surprise kasi never expected natin na tatraidor si Marcos Jr. Kapalit pala ng interest niya at nila. Yun ang nangyari dyan. Imagine, biruin ninyo, kung sana si Leni ang nanalo at pina-ICC si PRRD, mas madali pang tanggapin kasi kalaban
Which had long history in the country's politics.
Some people would say both pretty much, but there were hints from the beginning that the alliance would not last long. Jonathan mentioned earlier that they realized the pragmatism of teaming up together. But in the beginning, this was something that the patriarch, Rodrigo Duterte, actually resisted. He hinted and actually said out loud that Bongbong Marcos, the current president, is a druggie. And in the Duterte world, this is no light accusation.
What if, ito lang realization ko kasi during that time Isko ang sinuportahan natin. What if kaya ang in-endorse ni PRRD ay si Isko? At most likely, mananalo. Pero alam nyo, ako after seeing Isko ngayon, pag si Isko, mapa-ICC pa rin si PRRD. Talaga.
In the Duterte world,
Ano lang talaga ang hindi na magpa-ICC sana kay PRRD? Kung tumakbo presidente si VP.
when you accuse someone of being an addict, it is essentially
Kasi nakita ninyo paano nila na-hold, na-control si Marcos Jr. knowing the fact na talagang ally, staunch ally natin yan. Pero
a death sentence. But somehow they managed to hurdle this initial diplomatic tussle between the two families, and Sara Duterte essentially agreed to becoming the vice president. Fast forward to a year, 2 years later, she was refused the defense portfolio and assigned to become education secretary instead for one. The differences in their foreign policy stance became clear with
nakita nyo kung gaano kawalang tiwala si Marcos Jr. kay VP. Kasi kung may tiwala ka talaga sa tao, ibibigay mo yung defense Wala kang magiging isip na baka kung anong gawin at gamitin yung national defense against sa'yo.
Duterte's having a more pro-China stance, while the Marcos administration has positioned itself to be more open to the West, but also non-traditional allies like Canada, Japan, Australia, and so on. And so there's kind of been a clear policy divide between these two families. And then, the alliance further went to a point of no return, I would say, when sometime in 2024, Sara Duterte revealed in a midnight live stream that she had actually contracted an assassin to kill Bongbong Marcos in event of her death. And this was a very alarming thing for a vice president to announce, that there was essentially some kind of like death threat hanging over the head of the sitting president. And this was all coming in the midst of the impeachment proceedings or corruption scandals that Sara Duterte herself was facing in Congress.
Ay, yung aso mo.
The
Pakainin mo.
Marcos administration, in turn, a few months later, essentially turned over Duterte's father, the former president, to the International Criminal Court. In the very
Oh. Ano sabi niya?
Duterte's father,
Ano sabi?
a few months later, essentially turned over the
In turn, ang ibinalik ng administration, ang ganti ng administration, tinurn over. You see how the world view or perceive yung pagiging nandun ni PRD sa The Hague? Tinurn over, sinurrender, ganun how they see. Kahit anong reason kung paano sasabihin ng Marcos administration na, we used the Interpol, we did not cooperate with the ICC. But the world sees it, views it as na turnover, sinuko ang sovereignty natin.
Duterte's father, the former president, to the International Criminal Court in a very high-profile historical arrest. So we've come to a point where the alliance between these two families is probably irreparable, I would say.
And Jonathan, in terms of these impeachment cases that both the president and the vice president are facing, what's the timeline here? I mean, because I'm sure this could actually affect Sara Duterte, for example.
Ito, sasabihin ni Jonathan yung pagkakamali ni Marcos Jr. dito.
Ambition to run for presidency.
Yes, it certainly does, because if she's impeached, she cannot run, and that's obviously the calculation. Look, impeachment in the Philippines is a bit like impeachment in the United States. It's a political process. You need the votes in the House of Representatives, the lower house of Congress, and what was interesting about the threat to impeach Sara Duterte, and, there's quite a lot of evidence that funds that she was using, special funds as a vice president, may have been used improperly. So there is a
May have been. No, hindi niya
case
sinabing
there.
have been.
But President Marcos appears to have miscalculated very badly on two actions.
sabi mo,
President
ulitin mo?
Marcos appears to have miscalculated very badly on two actions. You mentioned sending former President Duterte to the International Criminal Court. I mean, that's exceptional. It's very rare for a former leader to be sent to the ICC. There are very strong arguments for doing so. I mean, huge numbers of people were killed under his drug war. Lots of people in the Philippines who lost family members want that kind of accountability. But even so, it was clearly a political decision when President Marcos decided to do that. But it backfired. During the midterm elections last year, actually Sara Duterte
It
was able
backfired.
to use it to say, a popular president, which Duterte was, gets sent, in handcuffs in a plane back to face foreign justice. It really played well for her. The impeachment also backfired. President Marcos tried to impeach her last year, and it was turned down by the Supreme Court because you can't introduce impeachments twice within a year, and there had been an earlier one. But more than that, he didn't do well in the midterm elections. He didn't get his candidates into the Senate. So it's not even clear that the impeachment would have got enough votes. To go up against Sara Duterte, who is a formidable personality and is a front-runner to win the 2028 election, President Marcos is taking a big gamble. If he can't disable her campaign through impeachment, if she wins the presidency, he can be sure that she will go after him as well. So there's an awful lot at stake here, and it looks to me like Bongbong Marcos miscalculated on those two actions last year. I'd be very interested, Regine, if you could explain who is making the decisions in Malacanang Palace, in the presidential palace, around President Marcos? Because it does seem to me that he may not be getting very good advice.
Who is primarily in charge of the decisions? There are some guesses from analysts, I would say, but there is a lot of inconsistent messaging because of power struggles within the Marcos camp. His cousin, the House of Representatives Speaker, a former House of Representatives Speaker, Martin Romualdez, has had to step down in light of flood control corruption scandal. And that is another huge thing that has kind of wrapped the Marcos administration. You know, during the months of the ICC arrest, the scandal would have been completely unthinkable. It was a complete dark horse to the Marcos admin. And it was a can of worms that he had opened himself, because in his
Can of worms he had opened himself.
own words during the State of the Nation address, he wanted to look into flood corruption. But then it opened what could be the largest and deepest, longest running corruption scheme in Philippine history.
It's interesting because the situation seems
Alam nyo, kung sino man, kahit sino man ang manalo sa 2028, alam nyo kung sino yung kawawa? Si Marcos Jr. Kung manalo man yung kampo ng mga liberal, kawawa si Marcos Jr. Yung hindi nila inuungkat ngayon kay Marcos Jr., uungkatin nila sa 2028. Kung mananalo man ang kampo, banda ng Duterte, kung may impeachment, na alam ko naman hindi, kung sakali na hypothetical lang, sa side ng mga Duterte or support ng mga Duterte, kawawa din si Marcos Jr. Kasi sobrang sakit yung ginawa niya sa pamilya ng Duterte. At hindi lang sa pamilya ng Duterte, sa Pilipino in general na nagtiwala sa kanya. So regardless kung sino ang manalo sa 2028, kasi ano yan kumbaga wala na siyang takas Both sides, kalaban niya. Kasi yung kakampi niya ngayon, kalaban niya in the future, kakampi niya lang ngayon yan. So walang mapupuntahan dito naipit na siya. Sandwich na siya, wala siyang mapupuntahan kasi regardless kung sinong mananalo sa 2028, babalikan at babalikan si Marcos Jr.